In the early 1990s, as the world was just beginning to grasp the potential of the internet, a young Russian mathematician was about to pull off one of the most audacious crimes of the digital age. He didn't hack NASA, nor did he steal people's personal data. He didn't pose as a Nigerian prince either. This man stole $10 million from Citibank, one of the largest banks in the world. This is the story of Vladimir Levin, the mastermind behind the first online bank heist ever. It's 1994. The internet is still in its tender infancy. Most people are using dial-up modems, and the idea of online banking is just a novelty, to say the least. The internet was just beginning to transform from a niche technology used primarily by academics and government agencies into the global network we know today. E-commerce was just in its infancy. Amazon had just been founded. Google wouldn't exist for another 4 years. Facebook was still a decade away. The dot-com boom was just beginning to gather steam. But for Vladimir Levin, a 29-year-old computer programmer from St. Petersburg, Russia, the internet was an opportunity. Levin wasn't a typical criminal. He was a brilliant mathematician with a degree in biochemistry from St. Petersburg State University, but his true passion? Computers. While his classmates were focusing on test tubes and Bunsen burners, Levin was deep diving into the world of codes and networks. Now, you might be wondering, how does a biochemist end up orchestrating a multi-million-dollar heist? Well, that's where things get interesting. Levin's journey into cybercrime didn't happen overnight. He spent years honing his skills, exploring the depths of computer systems, and pushing the boundaries of what was possible in the digital realm. By the mid-90s, he had become a master of his craft, capable of navigating complex networks with ease. But Levin wasn't satisfied with just being good at computers. He wanted more and more. That's when he set his sights on one of the biggest banks in the world, Citibank. But he didn't stop there. He spent months studying the network, learning its ins and outs, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And then, in June 1994, he made his move. Over the course of several months, Levin and his team of accomplices executed around 40 wire transfers, moving over 10 million from various corporate accounts to banks around the world. The money was sent to accounts in Finland, Russia, Germany, the Netherlands, the United States, Israel, and Switzerland. And the best part? Levin never set foot in the United States during the entire operation. He orchestrated the whole thing from his humble apartment in St. Petersburg, using nothing more than a laptop and a dial-up connection. Now, you might be thinking, surely someone notices $10 million going missing. And you'd be right. Citibank did eventually catch on to the scheme, but by then, Levin had already made off with a significant chunk of cash. The bank security system detected the fraudulent transactions, but not quickly enough to prevent the initial transfers. Back then, Citibank wasn't just any bank. It was a financial giant with a reputation for having some of the most secure systems in the world. But for Levin, that was part of the challenge. He saw their security as a puzzle to be solved, a code to be cracked. So how did he do it? How did this Russian programmer manage to breach one of the most secure financial institutions in the world? It all started with a flaw in Citibank's cash management system. This system was designed to allow corporate clients to transfer funds between accounts. Sounds simple enough, right? But here's the catch. The system relied on the user's ID and passwords for authentication, and those credentials were transmitted over regular phone lines. For someone with Levin's skills, this was like leaving the keys to the vault under the doormat. He didn't need to break down any walls or crack any safes. All he needed to do was intercept those credentials. So, using a series of clever hacks and social engineering techniques, Levin managed to gain access to the system. Once they realized what was happening, they started monitoring subsequent transactions, working with the FBI to trace them back to the source. But Levin was clever. He had spread the money across multiple accounts in different countries, making it incredibly difficult to track. And he wasn't alone. He had recruited a team of accomplices to move and withdraw the funds. One of the accomplices was a Russian couple living in San Francisco. They had been tasked with opening accounts to receive some of the stolen money, but their part in the scheme was short-lived. In a dramatic turn of events, the FBI arrested the wife as she attempted to withdraw the funds from one of these accounts. Her husband was apprehended shortly after. The arrest was crucial for this case. The couple, faced with serious charges, decided to cooperate with the authorities. They revealed that the operation was being run out of a computer firm in St. Petersburg, and they named Vladimir Levin as the mastermind. But catching Levin wasn't going to be easy. He was still in Russia, beyond the reach of the US. The FBI needed to get creative. They teamed up with Russian authorities, leveraging a newly established FBI legal attaché office in Moscow. The Russian authorities provided crucial evidence, including proof that Levin was accessing Citibank's computers from his own laptop. Meanwhile, the FBI was working with other international law enforcement agencies to track down and arrest the other members of Levin's network. 2 more Russian nationals who had been recruited as couriers to withdraw funds from overseas accounts were apprehended. The net was closing in on Levin. But how do you catch a hacker who never leaves his apartment? The answer came in March 1995. In a clever sting operation, Kevin was lured to London under the pretense of a business opportunity. As soon as he set foot on British soil, it was the end for him. He was arrested. The story doesn't end there. Levin fought extradition to the United States for almost 3 years. During this time, the case against him continued to build. Finally, in 1997, he was extradited to New York to face trial. The next year, in January 1998, Levin pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit bank fraud and computer fraud. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay Citibank $240,000 in restitution, the amount he had personally managed to withdraw before being caught. Now, what happened with all the money? Well, thanks to the quick actions of Citibank and law enforcement agencies around the world, most of the money was recovered. Out of the 10 million stolen, all but 400,000 was eventually returned to the bank. But the impact of Levin's heist went far beyond the money. It was a wake-up call for the entire financial industry. Banks suddenly realized just how vulnerable their systems were to this new type of crime. Citibank, for its part, quickly implemented new security measures. They developed a system called the dynamic encryption card, which looked like a pocket calculator. Users would turn it on, enter a PIN, and it would generate a one-time password for logging into the system. This dramatically increased security, as the passwords couldn't be reused or easily intercepted. This sparked a revolution in cybersecurity across the entire financial sector. Banks started investing heavily in more secure systems, encryption technologies, and fraud detection algorithms. But perhaps the most significant impact was on public perception. Levin's heist brought the reality of cybercrime into the spotlight. Although it might seem very achievable and common to us now, at that time it was almost like science fiction. But suddenly, the idea that someone could rob a bank without ever setting foot inside wasn't just the stuff of any movie, it was a very real threat. The case had become a landmark in history of cybercrime. It was one of the first instances where a hacker was successfully prosecuted for stealing from a financial institution. It set important legal precedents and helped shape the laws and policies that govern cybersecurity today. Yet, despite all these advances, the cat and mouse game between hackers and security experts continues. Every new security measure is met with more and new sophisticated attack methods. The stakes have only gotten higher. In 2014, for instance, a group of Russian hackers stole over 1 billion usernames and passwords from 420,000 websites. In 2016, hackers managed to steal $81 million from the Central Bank of Bangladesh, using the SWIFT network, the same network many banks use for international wire transfers. These modern heists make Levin's 10 million hack seem almost quaint by comparison. But they all follow the template he established: find a vulnerability, exploit it systematically, and move the money quickly before anyone notices. So what became of Vladimir Levin after he served his prison sentence? That's where the trail goes cold. After his release in 2000, Levin seemingly disappeared from public view. Some speculate that he returned to Russia, while others suggest he may have gone straight and put his skills to use in the legitimate tech industry. Wherever he ended up, Levin's legacy in the world of cybercrime is secure. He showed what was possible at a time where most people were trying to figure out how to send an email. And this was the story of the first online bank heist. $10 million stolen right under Citibank's nose by a visionary who used his skills in a way that might not have been productive, but was ingenious nonetheless.